Hello everyone, back to you today's second video. So we've already done the 5-day forecast. You can find that video here on the homepage. Just scroll down the page a little bit and it's above the snow desk. There's also a written version. You can get to that from buttons at the top of the page. Going to be an unsettled 5 days coming up. Going to be some rain and sleet and snow around in the next day or so. Over the weekend, we're going to find much milder air pushing up from the south. So for England and Wales, you're going to have a bit of a taste of spring, but we may not truly get that mild air up to Scotland. Have to wait and see on that. But have a look at the 5-day forecast and see what you think. This video is going to extend out beyond the 5-day forecast period time frame, and we'll have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days. And essentially, it's still the same storyline that we've been talking about in the videos over the past couple of days. It looks unsettled for the period running up to the middle part of the month. There'll be low pressure never too far away, so we can expect more showers or longer spells of rain. Going up to the middle part of the month, most definitely. No sign of high pressure arriving to give us an extended spell of spring-like weather. This side of the first half of March, what happens in the second half, of course, is much more speculative. So I'll take you through everything that's going on. We're going to start off having a look at the Arctic and North Atlantic oscillations. So this is the Arctic oscillation observed and forecast chart. The black line here tells us where we've been with the Arctic oscillation. The red line's at the end where the GFS sobbles are forecasting the Arctic oscillation to go. It's just an index that's reflecting the state of the atmosphere over the North Pole. It's not driving anything. Just tells you what the atmosphere is doing. Go right way back into the autumn, actually, with this, into start of November. Just here, you see that through most of the winter we was really up and down with the Arctic oscillation. So negative there, and then through a spell of positivity, and then negative, and then positive, and up and down, and so we go along until we get to the end of February. This period just here, we have the southern stratospheric warming, which then produced a blocking signature over Scandinavia, and that in turn caused the Arctic oscillation to absolutely collapse and go into very negative territory into the start of March. Now we're seeing the atmosphere trying to recover from that very dramatic development of the stratospheric warming and the blocking that happened in February. But we still have a very negative Arctic oscillation, actually, so there's still a lot of blocking around. All that's happened is that we've found ourselves going on to the mild side of that blocking. As we always say, getting the blocking is one thing after the stratospheric warming occurs, but where the blocking sits is always a critical factor. For a while, it was in a position to deliver us very cold, severely cold weather at the end of February into the opening days of March, but now the position of that blocking has shifted a bit, and it means that we find ourselves on the milder side of the blocking. But actually the Arctic oscillation is still in very negative territory, and generally the GFS symbols are forecasting us to stay in negative territory into the second half of March, which is this period just here. Yes, we do see a bit of a lift up in the Arctic oscillation index, so we're not as negative probably in the second half of March as we are right now, but nevertheless still definitely on the negative side of neutral with many of those members of the GFS symbols. And of course, whilst we've got this blocking signature, there's nothing to say about it won't shift its position again, just as it's shifted its position now to take us onto the milder side of the blocking. There's nothing to say that it won't shift its position again and put us back onto the colder side of the block. So as long as we've got this negative AO, hence blocking signature over the Arctic, we've got to be watching out for the chance, at least, that we'll go back into colder conditions at any point. North Atlantic oscillation observed in forecast charts is very similar. Again, the black line tells us where we've been with the NAO. The red lines at the end where the GFS symbols forecasting the NAO to go. So just as we saw the AO collapsing after that sudden stratospheric warming and setting up the blocking, so we see the NAO not going into a very negative territory, but certainly going negative. And for most of the winter, actually all of the winter, really from the 1st of December just here, the NAO was positive. So we can see we definitely had a very significant stratospheric or I should say tropospheric response to that stratospheric warming. Where we are right now is that we're still negative with the NAO. GFS models are forecasting us to stay negative for a while with the NAO, but then maybe trending up back closer to neutral as we get through into the second half of March. GFS models looking like this. We're looking at the upper air temperatures for Manchester today. The red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average. So starting off a little bit cooler than average at the moment and staying that way through the rest of this week. Over the weekend, that's that warmer push of temperatures I was telling you about that might give us our first sort of taste of spring for the south over the weekend. It is associated with a lot of rain though. Through to next week, we have, well, generally we're not deviating too far from the 30-year temperature average, so nothing particularly dramatic taking place with the upper air temperatures. It does disguise quite a lot of scatter though. I mean, we've got many ensemble members that are up here that are at a very mild level, but we do have several that are going down to really quite cold levels as well through this second half of March. So I think possibly the second half of March is a little bit more up for grabs from a temperature perspective. There are a lot of that sort of scatter that we see within the ensemble there that would indicate there are a lot of different options on the table for what may happen as we go beyond the middle part of March. Certainly from a temperature perspective, there's something like it's something like a 15-degree temperature differential there between the warmest and the coldest ensemble members, which is quite significant. So really it's up for grabs, I think, what's happening beyond the middle part of March. What we can say very reliably, we're talking about this a lot in the videos, is that we are going to have a very unsettled spell of weather up to the middle part of March. You know, that's 15th of March there. And a lot of rainfall spikes coming up, so we can expect several bouts of wet weather within the next week to 10 days. And still quite unsettled, even going beyond that, although maybe a little bit less so through that third week of March. Temperature anomalies are looking like that, so for Scotland and Northern Ireland, still coming out a little bit cooler than average, but for England and Wales, maybe close to or possibly even slightly above average going from the 7th through to the 15th of March. Not a great deviation, but certainly these are trending warmer now as we're losing that very, very cold start to March behind. Precipitation anomalies from the 7th to 15th of March look like that. Wetter than average for England and Wales, nearer normal further north. Over in America, things are going cold on the eastern side of the states again. So you remember when we was freezing with those beasts from the east, easterlies, it was quite warm over on the east side of America. Now it's all switched around again, so maybe the blocking has taken the cold air to the eastern side of the states, because their temperature anomaly from the 7th to 15th of March is coming out quite significantly colder than average. And you'll notice in the west of the states, where it was quite cold when we was cold and the East of America was warm at the end of February, now many western parts of America are coming out with above average temperatures. So it does appear there's been quite a significant shift in the long wave pattern across the northern hemisphere, even though it's still a blocking signature, and I suspect the blocking really is still controlling things. Clearly there's been quite a significant change over the past few days in terms of where that blocking is sitting and who gets the cold and who's on the milder side of the blocking signal. Precipitation anomalies for America generally coming out across most parts of the states, drier than average. So not going to be driving average here. This is how the GFS is looking for Sunday. Low pressure is around the Bay of Biscay. Could be threatening heavy rain and gales into the far south, southwest by the end of Sunday. Into Monday, it looks like that low pressure is mainly going to stay across the northern part of France, but it might bring some heavy rain into the south. Monday's actually a slightly better day because we find ourselves under a little bit of a transient ridge, but it is transient, so by Tuesday the next low pressure is heading in from off the Atlantic, and that just takes into a very unsettled spell through the middle part of next week. Low pressure is firmly in control of weather, bringing showers or longer spells of rain. And that looks really unsettled for next Thursday. That's Thursday the 15th of March. We've got the jet stream still on a southerly track. We're still on the cold side of a jet, technically, but we're close to these areas of low pressure which are feeding in the wet and windy conditions off the Atlantic. But because it's an Atlantic flow, it won't be particularly cold. We head up towards day 10, and that's how we look when we get to day 10, which is Saturday the 17th of March. It still looks really, really unsettled, that. No sign that we're getting out of this unsettled spell anytime soon. So up to day 10, low pressure is close to the country, bringing in more showers or longer spells of rain. A little bit beyond that, we do start to try and turn things colder. We begin to set up high pressure in the middle of the Atlantic and try to take it up towards Greenland. On this particular run of the GFS, it doesn't quite come up, but look at how we have got a really quite impressive blocking feature setting up over Green. So what's happening there is that the blocking is reorganising itself, it's repositioning itself, and coming back onto our side of the Atlantic. And whilst on this particular GFS run, we don't get particularly cold from it, because we still keep these areas of low pressure hanging around our side of the Atlantic. I mean, we're talking about charts that are 348 hours away, so obviously that is subject to change. But it is the idea that because we've got the blocking, which is the result of the southern stratospheric warming, and that continues into at least the second half of March, we could see the blocking coming back onto our side of the pole and the Atlantic. And if it does, I think this year we are at greater than normal chance. We have a greater than normal chance, probability of turning things really quite cold again. We won't go back to the kind of severe cold we had with the beast from the east. We won't be talking about daytime maximums of -3, -4, -5. It can't get that cold in the second half of March. But we know from 2013 that the second half of March and even into early April can be really very cold indeed, and you can get a lot of snow even into the end of March or the early part of April. So we just need to keep a close watch on this. I'm not saying the blocking will come back onto our side of the pole and of the Atlantic and turn things very cold, but I think we are at a greater than normal probability or possibility that that could happen this year due to the sudden stratospheric warming that occurred back in February. So we will need to keep a close eye on it. That's how the ECMWF is looking. Low pressure again is close to the country on Sunday, and as we go into next week as well, we look very unsettled with low pressure never far away, just continuously driving in from off the Atlantic. As we head up towards day 10, Saturday 17th of March, it looks like we're trying to push out low pressure to the east, trying to push a trough to the east, maybe hinting at some ridging developing in the middle of the Atlantic and trying to get towards Greenland, not to the same extent that the GFS has it, in terms of that high pressure that sets up close to Greenland by around the 20th of March. But if we could run on a few more days, it would be probably interesting to see where that will go. Again, the black line is to our south, so it's on the cold side of the jet. Generally, all that needs to happen to turn things colder again is to shove this trough to the east and turn the winds into the north. It looks like that might be starting to happen there on that day 10 ECM chart. There's the upper air temperature showing cold air is beginning to drift southwards by day 10. But as I say, the main story over the next week to 10 days is going to be rain. So again, this is the 10-day accumulated precipitation forecast based on the 6 o'clock run of the GFS from the weatheroutlook.com. And again, looking at really quite high rainfall totals for the south and southwest in particular, with many parts of Wales, southern, southwest England forecast to get between around 50 and 70 millimetres of rain. Even across the Midlands into East Anglia, we're close to 50 to 60 millimetres of rain. It doesn't look as wet for Scotland and North East England. There we are under 25 millimetres, and Northern Ireland as well. That is indicative of the southerly tracking jet stream and the atmosphere still being in a rather unusual state, not truly recovered from the southern stratospheric warming and the blocking, because normally in an Atlantic driven pattern it would be the north and northwest that would be wettest. So you would expect the wettest anomalies to be across northern western Scotland, northwest England. We do see it across northwest England and across Northern Ireland too. Not really for the far south and southwest, such as we see on that view. So again, it's just an indication of what we confirm through these charts, that the jet stream is still mainly down here, and it means that southern parts of the country are getting the wettest of the weather, and it's an unusual and quite abnormal type weather pattern, and it's all a follow-on from the beast from the east and from Scandinavian High and from the stratospheric warming. So we haven't come out of this yet, although we have turned things milder and we have changed the long wave pattern across much of the northern hemisphere. We've shifted the blocks and the troughs around, or ridges and the troughs around. We haven't come out of that very dramatic development of the southern stratospheric warming and then the blocking. And so whilst this remains the case, we have still got to be ever alert for the possibility, and the GFS does hint at it in its extended range, that the blocking might come back onto our side of the pole and onto our side of the Atlantic. If it does, and at any point we could go into quite a cold spell of weather, and it's even at the end of March into the early part of April, it's not too late to get significant snowfalls in the UK. I'm not saying this will come to anything, so don't be overly alarmed if you're a farmer or a grower or whatnot, but it is something we need to be keeping a close watch on in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Alright, don't forget to check out the 5-day forecast, but that's all for now, and thanks for watching.